so they can be safe as they pursue their purpose. Sabine advises clients on the areas of asset protection, such as business, intellectual property, legacy planning, and everything else in between. Uh,
Yeah.
Again, Sabine, thank you so much and welcome, girl.
Yes, thank you so much for the warm introduction. I appreciate it.
I know it doesn't do justice to who you really are and your body of work, but hopefully we'll get into that a little bit more.
Sure.
Um, so yeah, if you can just tell the people basically what you do day to day.
Yeah, so not to repeat what the things that you said, yes, I'm an attorney. I run my own firm called Franco Law Firm. We've been in business for about 9 years, and I'm in the space of asset protection. So we try to help our clients keep more money in their pockets and make sure that they pass on their assets to their next generation. So we're all about legacy building and, you know, more than just the dollars and cents, but like, why are you here? What is your purpose? And how do we help you make sure that you're mindful of that as you're, building out your life and walking out your goals and your plans? And so that's pretty much who we are. I have a podcast as well called the Ambitious Legacy Podcast. You can find me on social media. I have a whole lot of stuff coming out. So I'm sure we'll get into that.
Definitely. Absolutely. We'll get into every project that you're working on and the different ways that people could potentially work with you.
Sure.
But let's start with, because we want to get to know you a little bit, right?
Mhm.
Let's start with a quick icebreaker. If you had to summarize the dominant theme of your life into the title of an autobiography, what would that be?
Oh, so you know what's funny? I love, I know you're probably heard of her book, Yvonne Orji. She has that book called Bamboozled by Jesus.
All right.
And I feel like it would be something like that, like, thought you had a friend or something.
Yeah.
Because it's just been like, everything that I thought that I wanted, or everything that every way that I expected things to go, nothing went that way. But it's been, an amazing ride and sort of like an amazing experience to see how things could be a lot different than what you thought, but still turn out great.
Absolutely. Um, so that brings me to a good topic.
Mhm,
You're a lawyer,
mhm, mhm,
obviously. And as you may know, the percentage of lawyers that are Black are less than 5%. And it's
mhm,
actually scary how quickly that number is declining. And
mhm,
that's really scary because we are the group that needs to be informed about, our legal rights and things like that, because we're really missing out in all
mhm.
areas of life. Um,
Right.
so I want to touch slightly on that, but also simultaneously want to talk about the fact that in our early years, we go through life simply reacting to the cards that were dealt.
Mhm.
How did you stumble on this work? Where did you first get the mind to, basically, who taught you about the idea of legacy building, exploring a career in the legal field, and how important would you say that work is?
Yeah. Um, so I guess I should say I always wanted to be a lawyer, like when I was a young girl, I thought like that's what I would be, but I didn't really know what that meant, right? So like we hear in school, be a doctor, be a lawyer, be a, whatever it is, policeman. And so a lawyer was just the thing that I wanted to do. I think maybe it had something to do with like the Cosby shows and seeing like Claire
Yeah.
Huxtable. So like to me, I guess I knew like that's what a lawyer is. And so that's what sort of gave me that insight. And then I grew up in a Caribbean family. So, of course, those are like those are the options that you have. I didn't want to be in the medical field. So, at the time. And so that's what I chose is to become a lawyer. But as I sort of progressed throughout my education, like I didn't think I was actually going to go to law school, right? I did not enjoy school. I worked full time while I went to school. I didn't have the luxury of like going away or whatever. And so for me, it was just like wasn't fun. Until after high school, I ended up going to work in a mortgage company, helping like process loans and things like that, supporting loan officers who like write loans or give people loans. Did that. Then I was like, processing the loans, collecting information and all that stuff. And then I realized I didn't really enjoy it that much. And so I was always like a dreamer. I was always like, what's next? What's next? Like very like mature for my age. And so, when I couldn't see the role that I wanted to fulfill within that field, I was like, I probably don't want to do this anymore. Right. I went to work for a venture finance company, which was kind of cool, at the time. It definitely sounded interesting. The work wasn't hard, like it was stuff that I could grasp and I could do, but it didn't excite me. Like it was, paperwork and numbers and things like that. So from there, I decided, I was like, okay, I was 24. I didn't want to keep switching jobs, which now I know that would have been perfectly fine if I did. But I was
undergrad at this point.
At this point, I had graduated undergrad.
Okay.
And I was trying to figure out, what am I going to do in my life? Because I figured, once I graduate, I guess everything will fall into place. But then it kind of just didn't.
Yeah.
And so at that point, I was like, let me just go to law school. I just like there's a test you take called the LSAT. I just took the LSAT, applied, and was just like, if I get in, I get in. And I got in. So, and it turned out to be perfect because it was right before or right as the 2008 crash was happening. And it's like almost everybody wanted to go back to school because there were no jobs and things like that. And so it was a good time for me to be in school at that point.
Okay. Okay. I think there's so much to unpack there.
Yeah.
I'm sure I can imagine that your exposure to, because the way you kind of brought it all together with the area of focus that you chose to lean toward, your experience in real estate and a little bit of finance has everything to do with the niche that you chose to focus on. But I do want to go back to that thought of you being a young girl, aspiring to be like Mrs. Cosby, wanting to be a lawyer, and of course, Caribbean family, you guys are amazing and high achievers, and there's only a few options. But it's one thing to aspire to be something versus actually doing it. Did you have any mentors? Did you have anyone in your life that followed a similar career path to kind of show you what the path looks like the amount of work to expect, to commit to, things like that? Like, how did you actually start to define a path for yourself?
Yeah. So I am the first to get, I want to say I'm the first to get sort of like a professional license in my family, but all the women in my family were hard workers, right? So it's like, I knew that if you want something, you could work hard and go after it. So I did have that example. And until I got to law school, before that time, I really just didn't see any limitations, like I felt like sometimes I felt like race was a limitation. But other than that, until somebody told me like, no, you can't do this because of the color of your skin or what have you, I never really it never dawned on me that I couldn't do it, And so that's why I just went after it. It was like, oh, you want to do this? Okay, go ahead and go after it. And that's really how it sort of like, turned out for me. There was nothing that really stopped me. And it wasn't until after I got out of law school that I started to have insecurities, because the job market was tough because it was after 2008. So I got out in 2011. Things were starting to turn around. It was extremely competitive. And in addition to that, seeing myself in these different roles was difficult, right? So I didn't see myself in a corporate, big corporate, 300 attorney law firm or whatever. I didn't really see myself in a lot of these different spaces. And I was just like, I guess sort of having an identity crisis, like, who am I now? Like, where do I fit and what's going to be comfortable for me?
How quickly did you have to kind of get specific on the area of law while you were in law school?
Yeah, so when you're in law school, you don't have to pick a particular major. What they do is really train you to pass the bar, right? For the most part, most law schools are going to train you to pass the bar. So you're going to take certain mandatory classes your first year, and then after that, you get a choice. But you really want to pick stuff that's going to help you get through the bar exam, and so that's how it is. So when you graduate, you technically could practice pretty much any area of the law, except for patent law, which requires an additional like science background and things like that. But anything else you can practice. So you really don't have to specialize. And sometimes that kind of, I feel like that kind of hurts you in a sense that you're not, you may not be focused on one particular area. And so you may not have experience in one particular area unless you just happens to be a person who knew you wanted to practice a particular thing. So I wanted to practice entertainment law, and I didn't have any opportunities to get into entertainment law the way that, at the time when I was in school. So it just didn't happen for me until once I graduated.
Okay. And talk to me about your journey once you graduated. You mentioned that you kind of went through some personal, like insecurities, self-reflection. I know that you started your business almost immediately after. Did you have like your target customer in mind, or how to even build infrastructure for a business? How did you know where?
Great questions. Great questions. So yeah, no, I was really just like, when I got out of law school, I did take a temporary job at a law firm working on trust and estate. So I got some exposure to that. I had the real estate, huh?
How long was that?
It was like 6 months or less. Yeah. So that was like right out. And then I ended up, after that job ended, I ended up getting pregnant with my daughter. So I was like, okay, am I gonna go try to get a job now? And then like 3 to 4 months later, like they're gonna be like, oh, really? And about to go on maternity leave. So I decided to just go out on my own at that point. And the first case that I took was actually my uncle's case. He was getting a divorce, and he was basically going through it. He had an addiction problem at the time. And so there was no one to help him. So I literally just, went to the books and figured out how to handle this matter and helped him. And we were successful. Like, the outcome was as good as it could be for his situation. So I was really excited about that. And then I just started getting like family law, divorce cases and things like that. But it really wasn't for me because I did not enjoy, I did not enjoy it. It's very tumultuous. It's very just like emotional, just like being involved in people's like situations. It wasn't fun for me. So I asked myself, like, what do you know well enough and that you can, make some money from at this point? And so that was real estate. And so I did a lot of real estate transactions. And in doing real estate transactions and meeting people and seeing how assets were lost and not being properly passed down to family members and things of that nature, I saw where the need was, in the community and where I could really help, right? And so that's how this whole asset protection was birthed, because the real estate is included because that's one of your major assets. We have the numbers and the money aspect of it, which I got from my venture finance background and things like that. And then, the planning, which it's wonderful to help people plan their next generation, their life, and how they're going to make a mark.
Absolutely. I mean, I thank God for your life.
Oh, thank you.
I'm sure there's been some heartbreaks and painful moments, especially anyone doing business. It's to God, like, wow.
Yes.
I'm glad that people are promoting entrepreneurship, but it's not easy.
Oh, no,
Ready.
not at all.
But I think it's so beautiful that like your life has been like a building block. You pull from every experience to kind of build.
Thank you.
Thing. So you touched on something that I actually want to address more, which is we're going to get into like wills and trust and some of your services that you offer.
Sure.
But I know you don't do necessarily life insurance, but it has to do with our legacy and how, like, God forbid, people, it's really popular in our community right now where someone dies and we're just confused about where to start,
Yeah.
to crowdfund for their burial and little things like that. Let's start with what is a will and a trust? Let's start with the differences and then we'll talk about who it's for.
Okay, sure. Yeah, so a will and a trust, they're both called testamentary documents. So they allow you to say who you want your assets to go to when you pass away. But there are differences in how they allow that to happen, right? So with a will, you have to actually take that file. It's a document that's created with all your instructions, who your family is, what would you like, and how do you want your assets to be given out. It has some limitations with how you can give out your assets, but in any event, it's a document. You take it to court. When the person dies, you file it, must have the original, and the court then looks at it, make sure that they feel that it was, properly signed and everything like that. And then they decide how those assets are going to be given out, right? Typically, if you have a will, it's going to go exactly according to how you want that, unless people fight, right? So, which happens all the time. So family members could say, I disagree. I don't think that's the real will. I don't agree with that gift. This is actually what happened. And the court has to hear that, and it can make that process drag on for years and years and years, right? And so with a trust, it's a similar document. Well, not similar, but it's also a document, and it allows you the same to leave your assets to your family members. But the difference is it does not go to the court system. It never has to be filed with the court. So that means it remains private. It's never public, right? And then it also allows you to give your assets over time. So if you have a young child, you don't want to leave them, let's just say $100,000 for, directly. At 5, right? So you want to have some instructions, you want to have some limitations, and you probably want to have someone who can be in control over those funds that and you choose, versus having the court choose or having the court scrutinize who you've chosen, right? So it's an attractive tool if you have the amount of assets that's necessary. So for instance, if you have less than 100,000, you don't have real estate, most likely you can pass your assets outside of either through a will, or it can go automatically to the person if it's like a life insurance policy or certain types of accounts. And it depends, again, not if you have young children, but if everyone is older, then you could do that. But if you have real estate and you have over $100,000, most likely a trust would be right for you. Again, trust, legacy planning, trust and estates, it's very individual specific, right? So everybody's family dynamic is made up of different components. Everybody has different goals. And so it has to be done specific to what you want. But this is sort of like the easy sort of way to assess whether it's for you or not for you, if you fall into that category.
Okay. And then, so are these the two primary documents when it comes to, estate planning? And can you clarify what estate planning is? And I have so many questions, so I don't want to hit you with a bunch of things at once, but yes, clarify what estate planning is, who is it for? And so you mentioned the difference between wills and trusts. Trust is more for someone who owns real estate. You just have a few, dollars. I mean, $100,000.
Right.
Dollars, but it's some money to leave someone. Because my concern that I also want to build up to is, God forbid, because a lot of us are very private about our finances. Is there one area to collect all your information? So God forbid, I mean, we all walk around like, we hope to live long, but God forbid, things happen. Yeah. So one area to gather all your information so that your family doesn't have to be running around.
Scrambling. Yeah. Right. So, all right. So I'll start with estate planning and then talk about that specific question. So estate planning is basically making a plan of all of your assets, and your assets are things that you have of value, right? Either it's making money for you, it's worth something, or it's going to appreciate in value. Those are your assets. So you're making a plan for that, right? And so because everybody's assets are different, that plan is going to be different. So yes, a will and a trust is typically going to be part of that plan, but it also depends what you have, because like certain things you may require you to have that will or trust, and certain things may not. And it also depends on where you live. So although those documents are important and are typically a part, that's usually not the end all be all, right? And so you were saying, how do you collect all this information? So like, for instance, my firm, what we do is we have our clients or prospective clients fill out this whole like inventory of assets. So like, let us know everything that you own. And when we're done with the planning and we, sort of come up with a game plan with you on how we're going to make sure this gets to where you want it to go, then we create this asset inventory for you. So it's pretty much like a spreadsheet, and it sort of lists all of your assets and all of the important information associated with that. And then it becomes part of your plan. So we give it to you digitally, we give it to you hard copy so that you have that. And it's something that you will constantly update, because what clients don't think about is, well, especially since we always keep things private, right? We're not telling everyone where we have all our accounts, how many accounts we have, how much money is in them. If something were to happen to you, who would know? Who would know? And a lot of times, like when I'm talking to clients and they're like, oh, I think do I still have that account? I used to have this 401k with, and I'm like, if you don't know, how is your family going to find out? So we do work with clients to make sure that they have that stuff in order. But if you really wanted to, do something that you could do now on your own, is to like create a spreadsheet and just have everything written down. I mean, everything, even for yourself, because you may not remember. You may have money somewhere that you forgot to, address.
Exactly. Okay. And what is an executor?
Mm-hmm.
And also, if you can touch on, I know you provide a service where if I'm doing just a real estate deal, it doesn't have to be end of life planning. But if I'm about to buy a house or whatever, you also offer legal services for that. If you can talk about the different services that you have where everyday people can work with you,
Okay.
and yeah, like how everyday people can begin to get involved with this, and also, yeah, let's start.
Okay, sure. So you asked what an executor is. So an executor is, if you create a will, an executor is the person who you put in charge of giving out your assets, right? So your executor will be the person who goes to the court, who files your will, and who will be able to walk out the directions that the courts give them in order to hand out your assets to your family members. Now, an executor definitely has to be qualified. So that's why it's important to have your will documents drafted properly, to make sure that the person who you want to be your executor actually gets to do that. Because the court could tell them, actually, no, we don't believe that you're capable, or we don't think you're qualified. So you don't want that.
Usually,
so you were saying,
what disqualifies someone? Is it age? Is it like?
It could be credit. It could be, depending on the amount of assets in the estate. It could be credit worthiness. It could be whether they have funds of their own. They may be required to post a bond, but we can work around that in the way that we draft your will document, if that's going to be part of your plan. So a lot of times people ask, can I just do this online myself? I wouldn't do it online myself, because I feel like you don't know if this is something that's going to work, because you're only going to find out when you pass away. And actually, you won't find out after you pass away, but your family will have to deal with the consequences. Exactly. So that's why I say that. And then, so you're saying, how can everyday people get involved? So really, I think that everyone should have the conversation about estate planning and or legacy planning. So with estate planning, we talk about the documents, we talk about the assets, but with legacy planning, we want to look at the bigger picture of what is your life goal. And I think that's important for young people to think about what their life goal is and where they're going, so that they can have a blueprint to get there. May not work out exactly how you want, but at least if we're looking at things from this perspective, then you can sort of be headed in the right direction. And then a part of that legacy is to make sure you have your estate planning documents in order. So I think everyone over the age of 18 needs to have a power of attorney and healthcare proxy. And that's if something happens to you, someone else could step in and make health decisions for you or make financial decisions. There's so many young people with businesses, thriving businesses. And if you don't wake up tomorrow to walk out whatever your business needs to be done, what happens? And so if you're the only person that can do that, that's probably not the best thing, especially if somebody's dependent on you. So that's one. Two, we do handle some real estate transactions. So if you're interested in that, you could reach out to us for help. Did you want me to give where I could be found?
We'll do that. We're almost at that point.
Oh, okay.
We'll
Mhm.
do it again. People's attention span is really short. So,
Right.
um,
No, you can go. Mhm.
okay. So thank you for that.
Mhm.
And we'll break this up into quick snippets so people can really focus on the services that they can start with.
Okay.
Um, so I want to say to you how proud I am of you.
Aw,
You know,
thank
you
you.
are a jewel. I can tell from your personality that you're super humble and like, like yeah, you're humble, but what you do is so important and
Thank you.
I commend you. I want to boast about you because like I mentioned, I talked about the statistics, and I know that this is a short conversation. I feel like I can talk to you forever. But what you are doing, don't take it lightly. As an entrepreneur, I can imagine that you have moments, especially in this social media space where we're all comparing ourselves to one another, but you are in
Right.
your own lane, and what you do is unmatched.
Thank
So,
you.
of course, so I want to close out we close out each episode by presenting our guests with the following question. What
Mhm.
are the 3 tips that you would offer to your younger self to give you a head start on mastering not just this career? Because I do want to encourage more young people to explore careers in the legal field, but
Mhm.
the adulting thing in general. I know you're a mom. I know you have other aspects of your life that you
Yeah.
have to balance. So, what are the top 3 tips that you would offer to anyone that's trying to live a balanced life and really own their life?
I love that.
Mhm.
So the first thing I would say is don't worry at all, because worrying, one, doesn't add a day to your life. It doesn't make anything better. And it just gets you out of the flow of where the positive things in life come from, right? So yeah, definitely don't worry. Things are going to work out the way that they're supposed to be. Two, I would say be super intentional about what you want and don't waver. You know, if it is what you want, even if you don't see that there's a way for it to happen, it doesn't matter. Stay focused every single day on that thing that you want, right? And you will manifest it. The third thing I would say is make sure that you're keeping in mind all of the areas that you want to build in life. So not just money, not just family, but financial, familial, health. Every single one of those areas is extremely important, because you don't want to make it to where you want to be and be lacking in one of those areas, right? That will be where you will find regret. So that's my life lessons to my younger self.
That's your master class.
That's my masterclass.
Thank you so much again.
You're
So I
welcome.
just want to now present you with the opportunity for closing remarks, and also to share with our listeners where they can connect with your company
Sure.
and work with you. Mhm.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, the things that I said, but also, for young people, just to like have fun in life. Because I know you get a certain age and you feel like you got to have it all figured out. You figure that, you feel like there's not enough time, that, that, oh my God, I missed these opportunities already. But you know what? There's always more time. Of course, we don't know how long we have, but there's life is longer than you think. And you always have time to start over and to try again and to go after it. So I definitely wanted to share that. And you can find me on social media at Sabine, Sabine _ the Purpose Lawyer. I'm Sabine the Purpose Lawyer on YouTube. And you can watch listen to my podcast or watch it on YouTube at Ambitious Legacy. What else? Have
Hoodie, they can cop a hoodie.
they can cop a hoodie. They can cop a hoodie. You can, we also have an event, Ambitious Legacy event, coming February 26th in New York in the financial district. So you watch out for that. It'll be coming out soon. And just, thank you. Oh, my firm is at franco-lawfirm.com.
Okay.
Yeah,
Thank you so much. And keep us updated on that event if we can like help
sure.
promote or, be part of it in some way. I would love that.
Definitely, definitely. I'll keep you updated.
All right.
All righty.
Thank you so much again.
You're
Enjoy
welcome.
days, and I
Thank you,
appreciate
you too.
it. Okay,
Of course, of course. Have a great one.
you too. Bye.
Bye.